Hi, boys and girls. I'm back with Benjamin's Box by Melody Carlson. It also says illustrations by Jack Stockman. I want to give credit where credit is due. So, Melody Carlson is the one who made up the words. She's called the author. And Jack Stockman is the one who made the pictures. He's called the illustrator. They did a wonderful job with this book. I hope they like the way I read it. So we already read about Benjamin. We already read about his treasure box and his friend Eli. We read about Jesus coming into Jerusalem on a baby donkey and the people waved the palm branches. And this is when we find out that the leaders want to get Jesus. And here, Jesus had his last supper, his last dinner. It was a Passover meal, and he said, when you eat this bread, remember me, and when you drink this wine, remember me. The bread is like my body, and the wine is like my blood. And here's Jesus praying, but Benjamin and Jesus' other friends fell asleep. Okay, and here's where we are today. And you can tell it's not a happy page. This story has a happy ending, but it has some hard parts. So this page is called The Leather Strip. Let's see. Benjamin, did you hear the news? Asked Eli. The next morning, they've locked Jesus up. Everyone says that Judas Iscariot got a bunch of money to betray him. Benjamin gasped. He had told Judas about the bribe. Maybe this was his fault. He said goodbye to Eli and wandered through the city. What could he do? Was there any way to help? Sounds of shouting made him stop, and he turned to see an angry crowd. "Jesus deserves that beating," snarled an old man. "That heretic claims to be God's son." "He should be stoned," yelled another person, shaking a fist. "What's going on?" said Benjamin. "Why did they hurt Jesus?" "What do you know about this Jesus?" demanded the old man. They all turned and stared at Benjamin with angry eyes. Nothing," Benjamin stammered. His gaze dropped to the ground where he noticed a small strip of leather. He picked it up. It was from the whips used by the soldiers. It was wet with blood. He tucked it in his tunic and slipped away. Why would anyone beat Jesus? So what they're talking about on this page is that when they arrested Jesus, they did some terrible things to hurt him. And so a whip is made of leather, which is really tough stuff. And in the story, well, in real life, they beat Jesus with whips. It's really sad. Like I said, it has a happy ending, though. And Benjamin is getting really confused. He doesn't know why some people are so mad at Jesus. He's figuring out, was I right or was I wrong? He's thinking about it. He doesn't know what to believe anymore. He thought Jesus was really special, and now he's not sure. And a lot of Jesus' followers are going through that kind of thing. So I grabbed this to remind us of the whips that they hurt Jesus with. I'm going to read the next page too today because notice Benjamin didn't put it in his box yet. So we're going to read another page because they kind of go together. And there's Jesus. He's got all those boo-boos on him from the whips. The people were really mean to him and they hurt him a lot. But he let them because he loves us. Let's read. The Thorn. Benjamin continued to walk. If only he could make them release Jesus. That means let Jesus go. But what could a small boy do? He heard loud cries as another crowd gathered at the end of the street. "Hail, King of the Jews!" yelled a soldier as Benjamin pushed his way past men and women. And there stood Jesus. Benjamin looked into Jesus' eyes as Roman soldiers threw a shabby robe over his beaten back. So they're making fun of Jesus. They said, "People say you're King of the Jews, we'll give you a king's robe." But shabby means it's not really nice. It's ripped up and old. Let's see. Benjamin looked into Jesus' eyes as Roman soldiers threw a shabby robe over his beaten back. He expected to see hatred, but instead, Benjamin saw only love in Jesus' eyes. Just then, a soldier shoved a crown of thorns onto Jesus' head. You see this? Because they're making fun of Jesus, they put a crown on his head, but it's a crown of thorns. Some bushes grow with pokey things poking out that really hurt when you touch them, and they made a crown out of those to stick it on Jesus' head and hurt him and make him bleed and make fun of him. Oh. Another soldier hit Jesus with a stick. Benjamin's eyes filled with tears. Why were they doing this? A few days ago, everyone had called Jesus a king when he entered Jerusalem, and now it seemed they all hated him. Benjamin squatted down and buried his head in his hands. Please, God, he prayed over and over again, please make them stop. And when he finally opened his eyes, the crowd had moved along. Jesus was gone. Benjamin walked over to where they had scorned his friend and picked up a sharp thorn broken from that awful crown. Benjamin ran home. His parents paused to hear his story. They sadly shook their heads and returned to their work. Benjamin placed the thorn and the leather strip in his box and cried. Now, I told you today's is a sad part of the story, but it does have a happy ending. So I showed you my box. I have straw in it to remind me of the manger. I have the little baby horse to remind me Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a little baby donkey. I have a coin to remind us that the leaders paid Judas money to betray Jesus, to turn him in. I have a cup. Oops, I dropped my little cup. I have a cup to remind us that Jesus said, when you drink the wine, it's like my blood. Remember me. And now I'm going to add this to remind us of the whips. And I'm going to add this little piece of thorn bush. Put that close. Now, I have heard that in the part of the world where Jesus lived, the thorn bushes would have had big, terrible, long thorns. This piece of thorn bush from my backyard has little tiny thorns. But see, I'm still holding it very carefully. I'm not touching the sides because they're very sharp. And they put a crown like that on Jesus' head to make fun of him and to hurt him. I'm putting all those in my box. I hope you'll watch the next video and we'll see if it starts to get better soon, okay?